Well, good morning, or I guess good afternoon, or good evening, I guess, depending on where you're dialing in. I wanted to thank everyone for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Tom Robbins. I'm with Kentico, and it's always a pleasure when I get to work with our partner community because they bring so much information to the Kentico audience that it's just fantastic. And the willingness that the Kentico partner community has to share is something that I think makes Kentico very special. One of the things that I know I get asked about a lot is this idea of figuring out your digital strategy and figuring out how you're going to actually push your website and kind of solve the problems that you need to. And when we started talking about doing this webinar with Galvin Technologies, they had a fantastic take that I think makes a lot of sense as you start thinking about, your customer experience and how important that is. And I think it's incredibly important that we understand kind of everything that they're going to present today as we start building out our software solution and figuring out how we're going to communicate that back and kind of what those trends and technologies look like. So without further ado, it's certainly my pleasure to introduce Gary from Galvin Technologies, who's going to spend some time today talking about how to propel your website past the competition. Gary, you there?
I am, Tom. Thanks a lot for having me.
My pleasure.
Hey, Tom, I just want to do one other housekeeping initiative before we start, which is simply I would encourage that as we go through this, if any of you should have questions, there's a question box that's over on the right-hand side of your panel. So I'm sure that Tom will be monitoring those. So at any point throughout the event or throughout the webinar, by all means, feel free to post a question. So we're really excited about having this webinar, and especially having this webinar with Kentico, because one of the things that we talk a lot about is we're in this really exciting time of designing and developing websites, but it almost seems that saying we're going to design and develop a website is almost a terminology that was used a few years ago, because now, and to reference what Tom mentioned in the very beginning, it's what's that digital strategy? What are we going to do to ultimately create one customer or one single view of the customer? Kentico has been a great partner of ours. The reason why Kentico has been a great partner is that in order to ultimately drive a strong digital strategy, you need a lot of tools, or you don't need a lot, but you need a really strong and robust tool set to do that, and Kentico provides that. Kentico is a content management system that basically fuels the growth of your website. But again, these days it's not only about the website, because Kentico can do so much more, and we're going to dive a little bit more into that, but it's the whole excuse me, it's the whole online and customer experience. So throughout this event, we're going to talk a little bit about the customer experience, and we're also going to be talking about how Kentico plays into that. But just a little bit about us, for those who don't know us. We are a web and software company. We're out of Indianapolis, Indiana, and there's really 4 buckets of services that we provide. There's the web design, web development, which now is basically the web and digital strategy. There's the inbound and content marketing, which is essentially what are we doing to drive people into your website. On the software side of our business, we do custom software application work. We're typically a .NET shop. We do a lot of .NET development. Kentico is a Microsoft product. It is built on .NET, so we work real well with it. And we're also a partner of Salesforce.com, customer relationship management. So we have a CRM practice group that focuses on the customer side of the business. So those are the 4 buckets that we do. And again, we are thrilled to be here. I do want to get past one obstacle first, and I want to put this out there because what we're going to be talking a lot about is that if you want to propel your website past the competition, you really got to put a focus on sales. And Tom and I were joking about this a little bit ago, which was essentially For some reason, people think that salespeople is a bad word, or that being a salesperson is a bad word, or is a bad job. And it's not. It's a great job. It's the only job I know where you could make as much money as you wish. And so I think Tom and I were joking earlier about how sometimes people don't want to say that they're a salesperson, but they're a solutions expert, or there's something different. Well, let's kind of break down that barrier. And as we go through this, what we're going to be talking about is that it's all about sales. Companies want to take a look at that bottom line. And what we see is websites are supposed to do one of two things. They're either supposed to drive in leads and drive in transactions, or they're supposed to improve business processes or efficiencies. Both of those ultimately affect the bottom line. So let's not beat around the bush. Let's put it out there. It's all about sales. It's all about getting the revenue in. Now, this is not a sales webinar, so I don't want people to start hanging up, because this is not a sales webinar. But in any types of digital strategy, you've got to understand what is it that the business is trying to accomplish from a sales goal. Because the other part of it is, although it's all about sales, your customers don't want to be sold to. And I used the example of what my neighbor told me a few days ago. Is our neighbor is shopping for furniture, and he said one of the worst experiences is shopping for furniture. And Tom, I'm sure you've shopped for furniture, right? And it's just, it's one of the worst experiences. And if you've ever done this, it's you walk into a furniture store and all the salespeople are lined up, and you do everything you can to try to avoid talking to them. And they're always peeking around the corner just to see what you're looking at, and they're always keeping a distance, but you always know that they're there. And the experience is horrible. I always look for the cookies or the free coffee and just kind of hang out around there and let my wife do the rest of it. But it's a horrible experience. And so people don't want to be sold to, but just like in furniture sales, when we're ready to buy a couch or we're ready to buy a bed or anything, that's when we'll engage a salesperson. And that's ultimately what your customers want to do too, is they want to be able to use you as a subject matter expert. They want to get information. They want to teach themselves. And you got to do what you need to do to make sure that they're consuming that information from you, so that when they are ready to engage you or engage your sales team in a conversation, they're talking to your company. So I just wanted to spend a little bit of time on that we are going to be talking about sales, and let's admit that sales is good. When our company started, we started in 2003, and the strategy of our website projects then was simply, we just need a design. So I think at that point we were redoing a lot of websites that had the design from 1997 or 1998. So it was a bit outdated, it was a bit old. But the strategy then was just, we want a new website, we want a new design, and maybe we'll do some SEO, some search engine optimization to try to fill or try to drive people to our website. But there really wasn't the type of strategy that there is today. Then it was bring everybody to the website, and I think then we were talking about what's called a guided path. Bring everybody into the website and let them kind of choose what they're going to do. And that was the strategy then that worked, but that's not the strategy now. So if I were to take a look at this graph, and this graph is I took this from an organization called the Corporate Executive Board. And if you haven't heard of the Corporate Executive Board, it's an organization that does a really good job of presenting information about how consumers are buying now. They wrote a book recently called The Challenger Sale. It's a great book. But what they talk about is, back when we started up our company in 2003, if somebody visited your website, if somebody came into your company, they were engaging with a salesperson right away. So if this chart maps out time that a potential prospect is engaging with your company, when customers started to do due diligence on their needs and on your company, they were engaging with a salesperson right away. But what we're seeing now is that because of all the information out there, and because of all the content out there, and all the sources of information that has bombarded people these days, consumers have the ability to gather as much information as they can and to educate themselves. And this all came from the corporate executive board, and one of the things that they said is the consumer is much more educated than ever before, which means that they are doing all of their research up front. And if you were to take a look at the journey of when a customer does due diligence, they're not talking to a salesperson until 57% of the way through the process. I mean, that's more than halfway, and for many people, that's well beyond that quote. And I'm gonna post over on the chat window of your screen. I'm going to post a link that goes to a PDF of this study, and I think that any of you would be interested in it. So it's over on the chat window on the right-hand side. At any point, you're welcome to click on that link. But this is fascinating because basically it says, what are we going to do so that if the sales process is out of our control, we really got to do something in order to keep those prospects engaged. Because if they're not engaging with us, and we're not the ones who are working them through our pipeline, and the only time we talk to them is 57% of the way through, well, we got some work to do. So how do we do that? Well, one of the biggest things that we encourage, and I think everybody on this call would probably echo it, is that the website is going to be the main entry point. This is going to be something where people want to be able to consume information. So again, if they're not going to be engaging with a salesperson until 57% of the way through, that means they're not picking up the phone and they're not walking into your store. They're going to a website, and we got to figure out how do we get them to our website. So when we engage with a conversation like this, and Tom referenced a little bit about what we call the customer experience, is everything starts with a website. And website projects always start with a discovery. They start with a design. We develop it, and then afterwards we support it. And maybe many of you on the phone have gone through multiple website projects, and you're familiar with that experience, where there's so much emphasis, though, that's put on the design, and that's put on where content should go. And that's important, and believe me, and I say this all the time, design typically is 20% of the project, and it's the most important part of the project, but let's keep it as 20% of the project, because we got 80% others to do develop and support, but we also have to really figure out who we're trying to bring into the website so that ultimately we can drive in more sales. So how do we do that? Well, we do that with consistent and targeted content. The name of the game now is content. And again, maybe many of you have heard this, but consistent and targeted content is one of the biggest obstacles if not done right. But it basically consists of blogs. It consists of your social media, so Twitter. It consists of YouTube. Videos are big. I remember I heard one time that, what was it? It was like videos. Next to word-of-mouth marketing, videos are number 2 in driving in conversions. I don't know where I got that from, but I promise I didn't make it up. But it's amazing, and I know that for myself, I consume a lot of how-to videos. I'm a do-it-yourselfer, so I consume a lot of videos on YouTube about how to use a router saw or how to change a circular blade and all those things, and they're great. Flickr is another example of where you can put content out there. Pinterest is really growing strong. I remember when I first got on Pinterest, I thought it was only good for recipes and making furniture out of pallets, but not anymore. Now it's becoming a source of really good information. And LinkedIn is really coming on strong. And if any of you are, and I'm sure many of you are on LinkedIn, but if it's not part of your daily or your weekly strategy, I highly recommend you taking a hard look at it. But anyways, all this consistent and targeted content, what that does is that ultimately attracts people. So all that feeds out to Google and feeds out to Bing. So ultimately, we are trying to drive in people to our website. But that's not where the strategy ends. And oftentimes where we get a little bit frustrated is that when we only hear we want to drive people into our website, we want to drive people into our website, and the only metric that they're looking at are hits. And that's not the way we need to be looking at it. We need to be, yes, we need content. The game has changed. We need content, and we need lots of content that's consistent and targeted that will drive people in. But when we drive these people into our website, they're all different types of people. So you might have, in this situation, you got a green lady, a red lady, a green guy, and a purple guy, all that I'm going to be representing throughout this presentation. All of these individuals have different needs, and all of them have come to the website for a different reason. And what those reasons are, we're not sure yet, but we got to figure it out. The objective of the website design, so as we attract them into the website, now the goal of the website is to convert them. And we're a partner of Salesforce, so I'm going to talk about Salesforce, but you could use any type of customer relationship management, whether it's Sugar or whether it's Dynamics or whether it's your Outlook. But I'm going to talk about Salesforce. We know Salesforce best. But ultimately the goal here is to drive these individuals so that we are converting them into a lead inside of our CRM. And a good way to convert would be with, the best example to use is what probably we're all familiar with, which is downloading a white paper or signing up for a webinar or something along those lines. But the objective here is to get their information and get them in as a lead into your CRM. Because on your CRM side, you have all these salespeople. And your company has salespeople. These salespeople are held accountable to their sales goals. But they like websites because websites are driving in leads that ultimately help them with converting them in the business. But the salespeople are going to be focusing on individuals who are truly interested, and that's the nature of a salesperson. A salesperson is going to want to spend time with those who want to buy. And they're not going to really spend that much time with those who are kicking the tires. Well, what happens when you have 4,000 people who are coming into your website? That's a great problem to have, but when you got 4,000 people coming into your website, you can't have, in this example, 4 people calling on those 4,000 people because you don't know enough information about those 4,000 people. You don't know if they're just trying to get information for a school project or for a hobby, or if they truly want to buy a lot of products. Well, if none of these people want to really get engaged with a salesperson until 57% of the way through the pipeline, well, we got to do something. And what we need to do is we need to figure out a way that as these people get into our CRM, we are retaining them with marketing automation and landing pages and various types of campaigns. So we're constantly trying to work them back to our website and allowing them to constantly use our website as the source of information. So ultimately what we're trying to do, and I'm going to clear out some of the clutter here. I'm sorry, but what this ultimately is this is the customer experience management. So I'm going to clear away some of the clutter and basically talk about the objective of websites these days is all about what are we going to do to attract people into the website, convert them, and retain them. Because there's a sales funnel, and I'm just going to spend a quick 30 seconds on a sales funnel for those who may not be completely aware. But a sales funnel is basically a funnel that allows sales teams and sales executives to track where opportunities are. Our opportunities in the prospecting stage is an opportunity in the needs analysis stage. Does this opportunity have a proposal that's in hand and is it signed? So you may have, thousands of opportunities in the pipeline, but one way to measure where they are is to know what stage of the pipeline that they're in. Well, again, I come back to this stat. If 57% if 57% of the way through the pipeline, people don't want to talk to salespeople, that means that salespeople are going to be spending a majority of their time working on the proposals and getting the contract signed. Because remember, these salespeople have quotas. They have initiatives that they have to do every single month, every single quarter, maybe every day. But that's where they're going to be focusing all their time. Well, who's going to be working on all of, and I'm going to use my mouse here, but who's going to be working on this part of the funnel? Well, again, that's where your website will come in. And your website's going to play that role. And your website's going to use, again, I'm going to go back to using these icons, but content, YouTube, blogs, LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever it is, because ultimately what you're trying to do is you're trying to get this individual into your pipeline. So that individual, the purple guy, has come to your website. He's done something, and now he's in your pipeline as a lead. So is the green lady, and so are the orange and green guy. Well, let's also be aware that we're not the only website out there. Your competition has funnels as well. And your competition is doing the same thing that you're trying to do. So back in the early 2000s when our company began, the strategy then was all about getting ranked. Like, let's get ranked high, and let's constantly win on page 1 of Google and page 1 of Bing. Well, Bing wasn't around then, but page 1 of Google. Well, now it's all about let's keep the prospects and let's keep our leads within our funnel, because at any point, this purple guy can go over to a competitor's funnel because he's not committed to you yet. Or the green lady can go over to any of the funnels. So we got to be thinking about what are we going to do to constantly make sure that we're keeping our people inside of our funnel so this purple guy ultimately moves down and makes a purchase. Well, we want to go over 4 steps in order to do this. And the very first step that we want to go into is attracting the ideal audience. And so I talked a little bit earlier about what is that and how does that look. Well, I'm going to kind of go through this fast. I mean, this isn't as simple as I'm making it out to be, but the point I'm trying to make here is that we want to put a focus on what does it take to drive in the right types of content. What does it take to write the right types of content to drive in the right types of people? And I want to just underline, if I could, the right type of people, because oftentimes website leads are a bit fragmented, and it is going to require your content to really work them through and to qualify them. So what a persona is a persona is pretty much your target audience. These are the individuals who you want to go after. And you could have 3 personas, you could have 5 personas, you could, if you're a larger company, you could have 100 personas. Well, I'm just going to use an example of one of the personas who our company goes after. And we call that persona the code jockey. This is essentially somebody who really likes to write software code. So we identify what their characteristics are. Well, their characteristics are, they're between the age of 23 and 49. They're generally male. Their demographic is middle class. Their job title is senior developer. They have a college education. Their lifestyle is they have a family, but they're tied to technology tools, meaning they really like the technology part. Maybe everybody has an iPhone or has the latest and greatest in their family. Their activities is they like to game, they like to tinker with things. Their frustrations are they can't keep up with technology. Peers are surpassing them by. Their pressures are at work and maybe getting things done on time, the quality of work, the complexities of the architecture. What does it take to get a certification? And their concerns could be security, ease of architecture. There's a lot of concerns, but I'm just trying to make an example here. And their needs could be they need more education, they need tips and tricks, they need help, they need certifications, and their drivers are job promotions. So we sort of identified all this to say, okay, now we have a better view of who we're trying to write content for. Well, what kind of content do these people want to read? Well, what we recommend is that they want to read something about them that will help them, that will educate them. So we've taken the code jockey and we've basically narrowed them down to a junior developer, a senior developer, a director level, and CIO. And then we ask ourselves, what questions do these people typically have? And in this example, it may be, how does a junior developer create a C# web form? How do I upload images into a database? What has to happen for me to take a certification exam? And there's lots and lots more, but I'm not going to go through many of these. I'm just going to narrow it down a bit. So those are the questions that a junior developer would have. Well, the answer that we would give is a blog post. How do you create a C# web form? Well, we would put that on our blog. How do you upload images into a database? That would be a blog plus a video. What has to happen to take a certification exam? That might be a page on our website that talks about the steps you need to take to do a certification exam, and then at the very end of it, you could download a white paper. And then there's, again, there's many more. A senior developer has a little bit more advanced questions, and they're trying to understand a little bit more stronger questions than maybe a junior developer. And then the director level or CIO, as you can tell here, what are your software costs? Why should I do a co-location facility? So our blog now has an opportunity to have 7 blog posts all targeting this one persona. And we are now controlling the message. We are now going out there and we're trying to figure out, so we've now targeted our ideal persona, and now we're writing the content that that persona wants to read. And then what we want to do is, we're back to the funnel here, is we then want to be able to also map that content to the right stages of the funnel. So as an example, if I answered the question of when should I use MVC, well, that's more of a higher level question. Somebody's not looking for a solution to buy, so we're going to put them up in the prospecting stage. But somebody who asks at the very bottom, what does your software cost? Well, you know that they are ready to buy. That's content that they are ready to buy. And the reason why we map it to this stage is because later on, what we're going to talk about is how you can then begin to target various types of people, how you could target your prospects based on the stage that they're in. So if somebody's in your proposal inquiry stage, well, that's fantastic. Let's only give them content that they generally want to read. So this is what we call mapping the content to the sales funnel. Well, what kind of content do we write? So one of the biggest obstacles that we get into oftentimes is, it's pretty much at this point where somebody will say to us, hey, Galvin, that sounds great, but I don't know what to write. This is getting difficult. I mean, this sounds overwhelming, and I often compare it to working out. Everybody knows that they need to work out, but if you don't do it on a regular basis, you may do it for 1 week or 2 weeks, and then you drop off of it. So to help with this exercise, what we do is there's 4 types of content. So again, just to back up a little bit, we've talked about our personas, we've talked about the questions that they have, and then we've talked about where those questions generally lie within the sales funnel. Well, now we're going to write the content. So it's either going to be a conversation starter, or maybe the content's going to be a partnership building, or community involvement, or thought leadership. I mean, those are generally the 4 types of content that we want to write. And they're color-coded, and the reason why they're color-coded, you'll see. Well, the conversation starters are, more or less to get people engaged. Get them, get a poll out there, get an open-ended question. Partnership building is going to be talking about your partnership. So as an example, we might have a blog post that references some things that Kensico has done, or maybe Kensico has a blog post that references some things that Galvin has done. Community involvement, news, upcoming events, announcements of webinars, or some thought leadership, which again is maybe something along the lines of a how-to article, or the steps you need to take, or in-depth information about a certain type of service or product. But I want to go into another point about if we're writing all this content, the one thing that we always encourage our clients to do is to look beyond Google. Google is the monster. That's, you got Google and you have Bing, but let's admit that Google is the one who we're all trying to figure out and we all use. Well, Google is right. I mean, if our website has blogs and there's a Twitter feed and there's YouTube videos and there's Flickr photos and we're on LinkedIn and we're on Pinterest, what all this content does is it basically allows Google and their spiders to crawl your website so that you are constantly ranking well. The more content you have, the more engagement you have, the more visitors you have, the better results you're going to have on Google. But one of the concerns we see is that people oftentimes just want to sit in the silo of Google. And they oftentimes just want to say, all I want to do is get found by Google. And that's great. And although Google is the monster, Google is not the end-all, be-all. So we're going to put Google off to the side, and we want to break down that silo. So we still want to feed Google. We still want to get them all the content. But remember, we have all these other websites that are out there. There's tons of websites. I mean, and all of those websites have their followers, and all of those followers have their followers. And it's just a big pyramid of where if you're only focusing on Google, well, that's fine, but you're really missing out on the potential of also engaging with all these other websites. And the reason why I talk about this is because there's two approaches to writing your content. You have either what's called content that has an inbound link or content that has an outbound link. And oftentimes, website strategies will just focus on the inbound links. And they'll say, I just want to link every one of our blogs, every one of our websites will just sit within the silo of our company, and we will only do inbound links. It's a school of thought. It's I don't necessarily disagree with it because it works, but I highly encourage outbound links as well. So you have to do the inbound links. Don't get me wrong, you have to do those, but I also encourage the outbound links. And I used this example last week, which is kind of, when we're in high school, there's all those clicks, and if you only associate with your clicks, you're really not going to build much more relationships outside of those clicks in high school. But if you have your clique of friends, but you also have a lot of other friends that you mingle with, now you're getting more exposure to a lot of different people, a lot of different opportunities, relationships, etc. And that's how we got to look at it with the web. So with outbound links is now we have website content that links to somebody else's website. Because what that somebody else receives is if somebody links to our blog, I get a notification of that. Now I know about that individual. And I might now, as an appreciation or as a thank you or as somebody who I want to build a relationship with, link back to that individual. Now we have links together, and now we're building a relationship online. So I want to make sure that we're not only focusing on Google, but we're also focusing on making friends. We're focusing on engaging with other types of partner and websites. And I apologize. Tom, can you see this okay? I apologize. It's a little bit small. But I'll try to go through this as best as I can. Maybe you have a big monitor. We'll see. Well, so now we're into the color coding. So now we have all of our websites. I'm sorry, we have all of our blogs, and we're putting it out into a calendar. And we've taken a 31-day calendar, and we've pretty much said that on these days, we're going to do thought leadership articles, and we're going to do partnership building articles, and we're going to do community involvement articles, and so forth. And then we're going to have this article be an inbound link or an outbound link, another outbound link. So every single day, we know what kind of article to write, what that link, what the linking strategy is, and then down below it we have whether it's going to be a short blog post, a medium blog post, or a long blog post. And this is how we put together a strategy that attracts people into your website. Step 2, no more static websites, and this I love. So I want to introduce you to the concept of personalization. So we talked a little bit earlier about you have the purple guy and you have the green guy, or I'm sorry, the green woman. Both of these individuals have 2 different interests. So I like cycling, so I'm going to go to a cycling example here with one of our websites that I visit often, which is Performance Bikes. The purple guy has, is a different individual. He wants road and tri bikes, and the green lady wants more information on nutrition. Well, how do we find that out? How do we understand that? Because gone are the days where we have to serve the same content to every single person on our website. Well, everything starts with understanding what their personal information is, or I'm sorry, trying to gather their personal information, as well as trying to understand their behavior management. So the very first time that the purple guy and the green lady come to our website, they're going to receive a default view. Well, as they travel through the website, we're picking up on their behaviors. So we know what links they're clicking on, so that the purple guy, we've identified that he is a male who really enjoys triathlons, whereas the green lady is a female, and we've identified that she really is into nutrition and recreational bicycling. And we've picked up on all this information by their behavior on our website. So now we have a website that has 2 different instances, so that when the purple guy comes to our website, he sees bicycles, and when the green lady comes to our website, she sees nutrition. All of them visited the website at the same exact time at 11:37. So this is really where we can work on that conversion and really get the messaging to the right people so that we're converting them into the database. I want to turn it over to Tom just real quick, who is going to show us about personalization and how that works. And Tom, I'm going to try to, let me know if I do this wrong.
All right, no problem. And let me show my screen. I got it, and everyone should be seeing my screen. Gary, you guys can see everything, right?
I can, yeah.
All right. So what I want to do is take, I don't know, probably a minute or two and just talk a little bit about personalization within Kentico. What you can see here is I've logged into our CMS desk, our administration interface, and personalization is based on creating a variant. So what we mean by that is Kentico spends a lot of time displaying information using what we call web parts or widgets. And these are little slices of information that appear on a page and allow you to do everything, as you can see here, from displaying featured product to having newsletters. Where it becomes interesting is when you create these personalization variants. And this is based on a set of display conditions that you can see here. What I always like to point out is there's a couple of ways that you can create these display conditions. Probably the easiest is just by clicking on a set of rules. And these are rules that you can define. We ship with a bunch out of the box, but based on your business, you can go ahead and create your own. So for example, activity performed on a URL. What this does is it then creates a set of conditions that you can see on your left. And these conditions are mapped so that when the user comes in, they're going to get a different web part or widget or a modification of that based on the condition that's been set up. And what's actually nice about this is you can see if I click on it, I could do things like, set it from was to was not. I could define, an and or an or just by kind of clicking around. If you're a little bit more technical minded, you can move into what we call our designer interface, which allows you to go ahead and through a checkbox go ahead and select different activities and kind of expand out. So it's a little bit more technical than the rules. And then last, you could take advantage of what we call our K-sharp, which is a macro language that allows you to kind of define some sets and flows, and it's based on C# out of .NET, so it is for the more technically minded. What's nice about this is that it gives you things like IntelliSense. So even though you may not be familiar with what's going on behind Kentico, you can kind of pick and choose, and it'll help kind of build out. So you can say, current device equals, and start to fill that out. So it's kind of these features where it becomes really powerful, as Gary was talking about, is this idea of being able to do segmentation. And we define that as segmentation based on what are called contact groups. And let me go ahead and cancel out of here as the basics. And just so that you can see, a contact group allows you to create a set of segmentation for for your customers that are coming in, so you're activity based. So for example, I can go ahead and define a dynamic condition, which allows me to go ahead, as you saw before, and define a set of rules, so all users that have come in. Or I can go ahead and just manually add my contacts. And this can be either contacts that have hit your site and that we track information, or you can actually integrate into things like Salesforce.com and be able to push and pull that data. So from a personalization perspective, I think it's super important to understand that what you're doing is you're defining a set of conditions based on business rules, and then as that user comes in, they're going to be able to get a different display variant. So instead of getting a featured product, or I might be able to tie it to a contact group that's been looking at the mobile page repeatedly, and maybe I want to offer them a sale price. So certainly this is just kind of a quick overview because I know Gary has a lot more information that he wanted to do. So if you have questions, feel free to go ahead and send them in. Gary, otherwise I'm going to turn it back over to you.
All right. Thanks a lot, Tom.
No problem.
Let's see here. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
All right. So we talked, so step one was to attract the right types of people. Step two is to work on that conversion, which is personalization. Step three, and we feel strongly about this, is every website needs a CRM, needs a customer relationship management tool, because ultimately what you want to do is, and Tom just talked a little bit about this, and I will as well, which is you want to basically combine Kentico and your CRM. So in this situation, Salesforce. What this does is that this ensures that your website is truly part of the sales process, as well as your salespeople and your marketing people are also realizing that the website is part of the sales process. We also get a little bit into lead scoring, and what lead scoring is that now that you know who I am. So if I'm coming to your website and I've given you my information and I keep coming back, my lead score in your CRM begins to increase. And you may have your salesperson give me a call as well. And I tell him or her information about what my interests are, which raises my lead score even more. What this does is that this basically allows us to figure out the activity of the consumer so that our salespeople are spending the right types of time with the right types of people and not just with the tire kickers. So this helps out a lot with those 4,000 leads that I was talking about a few slides ago. The next is big data. Big data is a term that's being used, and I'll basically sum it up, which is get as much data as you can on the consumer and mine the heck out of that data so that you can better sell and market to that individual. The other day, and I thought this was fantastic, is every month we get coupons in the mail from Kroger, and Kroger knows exactly what coupons to send us. It always has to relate to babies because we have very young kids, so it always has to relate to diapers or wipes or toddler toothbrushes or peanut butter, but those are the coupons that we receive, whereas our our neighbor probably receives coupons more suited for them, which is maybe cereal and bread, and although we eat those too. But but it's basically, how do you combine, how do you gather as much data as possible so that ultimately you have one single view of the customer. You know all the conversations that your company is having with them, you know what trade shows they've been to, and you know what websites they've visited, what products they've bought online. Everything is in one single view, and that's why it's important to have your CRM as part of your website. Step 4, and this is the last step, is we want to put a focus on, it's not email marketing, but it's marketing automation. And what that means is, if these are all of our prospects, and these are all the people who are in our system, oftentimes what companies do is they send out their one email per month. And it goes out to everybody, and it has all sorts of content that's in there. And hopefully some people will read it, but typically those aren't that successful. Instead, what we want to do is we want to be able to send targeted email marketing to each of our groups out there, or each of our segments out there, or each of our personas. So I'm going to use a few examples here. As an example, if I was a college or I was a university, I may want to create a group of seniors who are in high school and have not committed yet, so they have not made a choice. So they're going to receive an email specifically to them that may talk about their questions. Maybe, how do I get in touch with financial aid? What's the campus life like? Whereas at the very same time, their alumni donors aren't receiving that information. Instead, they're receiving information about the latest capital improvements and the latest changes in administration, and information that's pertinent to alumni. Because both of those goals for the college or the university, the goals of both of those individuals are different. One is we're trying to get them to attend our college, and the other is we're trying to get them to donate to our college. Or maybe more on the corporate side, maybe you have, you can now send out an email list, or send out an email, I'm sorry, I'm stumbling over my words here, but send out an email to those who are in the stage of quoted, but they have not bought yet. So now we start sending them answers to those questions, which is, what is your software cost, and why should I colo? Because those are further down, because those questions are further down in that sales funnel. Or maybe you have a list of just those clients who are great, and you constantly just give them more personal information about your company, and you're really giving them a different view of your company, and you're giving them a different message. The beauty of marketing automation is that we can now set up trigger-based emails as well. So now you could set up an email to where, if I call on a prospect and that prospect tells me, hey, not right now, but I'll do it next quarter, or I'll talk about this next quarter, I could then initiate a trigger that would automatically send that individual an email based on a certain type of event. So the last step that I want to go into is marketing automation. I want to make sure we're not just looking at email marketing, but very targeted messages. So instead of one message going to 4,000 people, we have 4 messages maybe going to 12 people, maybe to 1,200 people, maybe to 300 people, and maybe to 3,000 people. But it's all targeted messages. And I'm going to now turn it back over to Tom, because this is one of the benefits of Kentico that we really like, is that it has a marketing automation platform. So Tom, here I come.
Excellent.
Right.
There we go. And everyone should be able to see my screen. And just kind of real quick, as Gary said, marketing automation is one of, I think, the most important features of our Kentico EMS product. And really what we're trying to do, and I think Gary said it rather eloquently, is it's not about 4,000 journeys. It's about kind of breaking those journeys down and giving people more of a personalized experience. Within Kentico, we think of it as a process that a marketer would create. And let me just go ahead and kind of create a simple one here. And as you can see, you're going to define the process across a couple of areas. One is you really want to define what we call the triggers. So a trigger is going to make the decision as to when the person will come into the marketing automation process. So, for example, when they create their contact, they may need to be brought into this process. They perform a specific activity, and you can see I can define kind of any of the activities across the system, including things like custom activities. So when somebody performs an internal search and I know where they are, or I can create very personalized conditions. So, kind of the simple example, if you remember rules, is they visited a URL. They might be from a specific area or a specific geography. But now that they've gone ahead and they've been put into the marketing automation, we then want to go ahead and define the steps. And I think when we built marketing automation, we did a great job in making the steps very easy in the sense that it is all about kind of dragging and dropping. So, for example, I can go ahead and define the start as you see here, and then I can go ahead and kind of move things around and connect my process to make it easier to build out that marketing automation. So, for example, the first thing that happens is they get sent an email, and then I can go ahead and define that email within my system here. And as my system's loading a little bit, there we go. You can see that I can define kind of what's going to happen. Do I want to send them a template? I want to send them a format, and then I can send that email. If I want, I can also do things like update, import them to Salesforce. I can go ahead and update contact status. I can update data from data.com. So this allows me to pull in the data. If you're not familiar, this is Jigsaw, where I can purchase additional data. I can also do things like chain together. So this allows me to define what we would call user choices. So, for example, if I wanted to make my process, coming down here, and we'll start connecting things, which we're not having a good luck here. But what you can see here is I can define a set of choices that allows me to say, well, what's the case of what I want to have? So choice one might be that the condition is that the user is from, a specific URL that they came in, or maybe from a specific customer. But as they start to build this out, you can build very complex processes, and kind of the real value here is the fact that as marketers are building these out, they're able to save a lot of money and time because they're building these processes and they don't really have to worry about connecting, people. They can put them in the right process, and the person's going to get value out of the contact or the engagement, or content or engagement that's being sent to them. So certainly that was just a quick overview of what we think about marketing automation. And if you have more interest in it, certainly please let us know, and we'd be happy to dive into it a little bit further. So Gary, I'm going to turn it back over to you now.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Tom. And let's see, I'm going to get there it is. I want to just go over one quick thing from what Tom mentioned, which is marketing automation. It works, and it really helps with if your salespeople are busy working the bottom of the pipeline, and we're relying on the consumer to stay in, or we're relying on the consumer to stay within our funnel. Marketing automation is a great tool to constantly bring them back to our funnel and constantly bring them back to our website. But the one thing I want to just caution is that oftentimes when you get into marketing automation, clients of ours try to think of every single scenario, and you don't have to do that. Start simple, and I think Tom showed just a real simple three-step approach to how you could set up a marketing automation trigger. But Tom, I'm sure you've seen many complex types of automations. So if we just learn to swim, we don't have to go jump in the middle of the ocean. Let's start, it's always good to start easy.
Absolutely.
My last excuse me, my last slide here, and the last point I want to make is that ultimately what we want to do is this concept that is the internet is now your homepage. So for a very, very long time, companies would only put emphasis on their homepage. And the homepage was the most important part of the design and the most important part of the project. Well, it is. And don't get me wrong, the homepage is the most important part I'm sorry, the homepage deserves the most attention of your design time and of your user experience testing. But the internet is your homepage. And what's happening is not everybody is going to your homepage first. So there are many websites that I frequent often, but I frequent those websites often because I get a tweet about them or I get an email marketing about them. But they're not constantly sending me to the homepage. They're instead sending me to something that's of interest. They are sending me information on a product or a service or a webinar or a white paper that I'm interested in. That's going to send me, instead of sending me to, and can you see my mouse? Instead of sending me to the home page, they're sending me to a landing page that is specifically catered for me. This will improve your conversions a lot more. But the reason why I say the internet is your home page is because of that instance that you're not going to visit a home page of some of your favorite service providers or product providers on an ongoing basis. You're going to go to Google first, or you're going to go to Bing first, or you're going to get a tweet, or you're going to get an email marketing, and that's going to guide you into a path that ultimately would take you, which would bypass the home page, take you to a landing page, and convert you. So now, again, we're into one single view of the customer, because over here we have salespeople who are also working this view. And I probably should have clicked that button first. But ultimately what we're trying to do is get one single view of our customer from both the salespeople perspective, from the marketing people perspective, and from the website perspective. This is ultimately what you got to be thinking about when you enter into your next website, is what is the whole strategy? What's our Twitter strategy? What's our email marketing strategy? What's our conversion strategy? And that's what you got to be taking a look at beyond just a new design for your homepage. That's the last point I wanted to make. And so, Tom, I don't know if there's any questions that have come through, or I don't know if we have time for questions, but if you have any questions for us, by all means, you could follow us on Twitter. You could also visit our website, which is www.galvintech.com, or just look us up on the web and feel free to give us a call. We always love to talk.
Excellent.
I'll turn it back over.
Oh, no. Thank you, Gary. So we have, I haven't seen any questions come in. Hopefully everyone's gotten the information that they've needed. But certainly we have another minute or two. If people want to go ahead and send in any questions, feel free to do. As Gary said, feel free to give Gary a call. As we always do, we will go ahead and the question just came in, will you make a slide deck available? As we always do, we will go ahead and record the session, and barring any technical issues, we will make that available at devnet.kentico.com on our video section, as well as Gary will make the slide deck available. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, and then we'll put it on our website too.
Excellent. So yes, we will definitely make the slides available. All right, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and let everyone go. Gary, thanks for joining today, and I hope
Tom.
Thank you, and I hope everyone enjoyed it, and everyone have a great rest of your day or beginning of your morning, depending on where you're located.
Have a good day, everyone. Thanks
All right.
a lot.
Bye-bye.